This is Pharmacy Road, which some people say is the most lethal road in the world. It's also here that the British had their biggest single loss of life, when 5 soldiers from 2 rifles were killed in one IED blast.
With IEDs, it's all luck. I've been really lucky I haven't stepped on one, and a couple people have just stepped in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Is it good? Anybody hit? Anyone hit? What?
Can you stand up? Huh? Can you see? Huh? Can you stand up?
You didn't hear you. You didn't hear you.
Yeah. Big T.
What?
Hold on to me. Let's go.
Well, first off, just want to thank Powerhouse for having us here. This is one of my favorite spots in all of the greater tri-state area. They have a bunch of great events, and it's really an honor to be here. So Ben is someone whose work I've respected and admired for its bravery, its courage, and also his willingness to get shot at in many places around the globe. So Ben's book, No Worse Enemy, you're a documentary filmmaker. Why did you decide to write the book?
Originally, I had no intention to write a book. It was just one documentary at a time, mostly for the BBC, then HBO, then BBC again. But about 18 months ago, these statements started coming out of Kabul, London, and Washington about how progress was being made, our goals were being met, the Afghans were almost ready to take over so we could leave with our heads held high. And I thought, well, that's the exact opposite of what I've been seeing for the last 5 years. You know, I never believed it when authors said I had to write a book, but suddenly I thought I have to write this book. I have to get everything I've seen and filmed down in paper in one place. And apart from literally a handful of quotes in here from my notebooks, it's all from my own footage. So it's, you know, it's not my opinion. I'm not exaggerating. It's a really simple portrait of what the war actually looks like, because that's so different to the war that we're being told is going on.
Now, the strategy that we have, right, is the reason we could pull out in theory is because there's the Afghan National Security Forces, the police, and the army. You have a clip, I think, that demonstrates the quality of, well, I feel like it's easy to bash the Afghans, you know, and especially in the US, we often do that. You can read in the New York Times, like, well, everything would be going well in the Afghanistan war if the Afghans weren't such fuck-ups. At the same time, you have this great clip. Why don't you introduce the clip, and we'll start with that to give us a flavor of the sort of real war that you don't often see.
Yeah, this clip is from my first trip to Afghanistan in 2007, and it's not an exceptional clip at all. We'd been under attack for about 6 hours. A Hellfire missile had struck a building, the wrong building by mistake, where British and Afghan soldiers were. We thought they'd been killed. So we ran across a field under Taliban fire into this building to check on these guys. Found out they were all okay, miraculously. The British responded by saying this is the most intense day of fighting they've ever had. The Afghans responded by skinning up a huge joint, and you'll see what happens next.
I don't understand how they can smoke it in the middle of a battle. It'd make you worse, but they love it. As soon as they get 2 minutes, they start smoking it and passing it around, all laughing and joking, and then a minute later they're running up towards bullets.
Well, I thought it might make them more cautious.
Yeah, it would make me more cautious.
But apparently it has the opposite effect.
Yeah, they love it.
So the Afghan, they'd got stoned for about an hour. They were completely out of control. One of them had eyes pointing in different directions, and he actually ran out, and he was so stoned that he was just aiming at something in the sky, and I don't know if you saw it, but a bullet came and shot the top cover off his rifle, which was pretty funny when you look at that footage, but afterwards we thought actually like a few inches up and we would have seen a guy getting his head blown off right next to us. And you know, it is difficult to bash the Afghan National Army. The Afghan National Police, I'm absolutely happy to bash. They're hated and feared by the local population. I spoke to one of the Northern Irish guys training the Afghan National Police, and he said 90% of the crime in Helmand is committed by the police. And you know, bear in mind that the counterinsurgency policy is we're trying to persuade the Afghans to choose us and the Afghan security forces over the Taliban. it's no surprise that lots of people in the South are going to choose the Taliban and see the Taliban as the good guys.
One of the incredible moments in your book, when you're just sort of explaining your reporting techniques, you said you went through and had what the Afghans said translated versus what people thought they said at the time, and there were big discrepancies. Can you talk about the sort of lost in translation aspect of the conflict?
I mean, first of all, I was always shocked by how few American and British forces learn Pashto or Dari. And most of that is because they do 6-month tours, and you can't learn about a local culture and establish relations in 6 months. But for some reason, the interpreters they employ would often mistranslate things. So there was a meeting with a mullah in Sangin, where he came out of his mosque, and he lived about 100 meters away from a US base. So if anyone's benefiting from our presence there, it should be him. And he came out and he said, "Yesterday you shot my daughter. A stray bullet hit her in the shoulder, and you wouldn't let us through the checkpoint. We had to take her to hospital. It took 7 hours. How do you expect us to embrace you, and this is how you treat us?" The translation was, "We're very glad you're here, security's improved, and my kids can play outside." And I had no idea of this until I got back to London and sat down with a really good translator and went through all of my tapes one by one.
That's incredible. Now, you mentioned just briefly the old man who brought his daughter who'd been shot. Can you talk a little bit about the Solecia payments, or the payments we actually make to Afghan civilians, the families of Afghan civilians who die?
Every time there are civilian casualties, there's a condolence payment meeting the next day, and the British actually pay less than the Americans, but the Americans pay $2,500 per life lost.
There's nothing we can do to bring back your loss. What we can do is try to help you out by giving you the very least that we can with a payment for your losses.
And again, I'm deeply sorry.
Gentlemen, this is for you, for your losses.
What do you think's going through that guy's mind when he's hearing this from foreigners? And what do you think he did afterwards? Do you think he joined the Taliban or just sort of went on with his life?
I spent a lot of time in Marja after that incident, and surprisingly he forgave the Marines. I think he realised there was a mistake, and he had a very good relationship with the Marines. And the thing he was most angry about at that meeting initially was that McChrystal and everybody else had made a big, Marja was announced months in advance, so the Taliban had months to prepare. They built incredible networks of bunkers and trenches and set booby traps everywhere. But they said to the civilians, "We're not going to use any rockets that can pierce the thick walls of your house, so stay indoors, don't flee, we're here to protect you." And he said, "I did what you told me to do. I waited inside my house for 4 days. All you had to do was shout, and I would have walked towards you, and then there was nothing but us, but you and the Taliban." And that's what he was most mad about, was he'd done exactly what he was told to do, and he still lost 4 family members as a result.
So the IED, the improvised explosive device, it's what terrorizes both, I think, NATO troops and also local civilians. Can you set up this next clip for us? Feel free to talk about your own experience, obviously, with the improvised explosive device.
The last clip is from Sangin, which is probably the town in the whole of Afghanistan outside of Kabul, which has had more manpower and resources devoted to it for longer than anywhere else. And this was my last trip to Afghanistan with 3-5 Marines. And the IED threat was so bad that it took 4 hours to walk 2 kilometers on a patrol. You had to walk in single file, and you literally had to walk in the boot prints of the minesweeper in front of you.
The man at the end of the command wire has let us walk over the daisy chain. He knows there are more Marines coming behind.
Hey, we're gonna have to get on the other one.
You doing good?
Anybody hit? Anyone hit?
5 of the 7 bombs went off.
See where it's at? Hey, dude, it was right there.
Just seconds after we had walked over them.
Can you stand up? Can you see? Can you stand up?
He didn't hear you. He didn't hear you.
Yeah.
Again, incredible footage. This is the first time I've watched an IED go off in a while, because I can't even watch this shit. what keeps bringing you back there? Are they noble reasons? Are they selfish reasons? Are they adrenaline reasons?
It's certainly not adrenaline. I mean, people say that is a thrill. I don't think I've really experienced it or been close to real ambushes or firefights. It's hard because once you've covered this stuff for a while, other stories, I mean, I try and cover the Republican nomination, I try and cover or follow British politics, and it just feels boring. This to me feels like one of the most important stories in the world. And now, when you ask me a question like that, it's scary. But when you're out there, you compare yourself to everyone around you. And the people around me have to kill people, they maybe have to save their friends' lives. I don't have to do either of those things. And the civilians around me, the ones who are too poor to leave, they're really suffering. I mean, compared to all of those people, I'm kind of a VIP. I've got a cushy job compared to them. So that makes me think I can keep on going back and doing more. And I really want to know what happens out there. I mean, I'm not at all optimistic about the future, but I really want to know how it turns out. And sadly, there aren't that many people covering this anymore.
Can you describe the process of you with the camera?
Everything I need, I carry on my back. And that means that I can join an infantry group like these guys and stay with them for 5 or 6 weeks. And if I sleep where they sleep and run the same risks they run and eat what they eat, they open up to me. And the goal is to film exactly what the war really looks like. And I'm sure it's impossible with me being there. I'm sure they temper their behaviour slightly because I'm there. But I think I've got quite close to seeing how they would have behaved if I wasn't there.
Great. Well, I want to again thank Powerhouse for having us in, and also y'all for coming out and for being engaged in this. What's obviously we spent $120 billion on it a year. I think over 1,000 Americans have died there since President Obama's been elected, and not to mention the thousands of Afghan civilians. So on that cheerful note, I want to recommend Ben's book very highly. As a fellow author who does these things, if you come, please buy the book. Come on, just shell out for the fucking thing. We're here. He'll sign it for you. It'll be good. I'll buy your book when it comes out too. Just email me. And just thanks again. This has been a really, I think, hopefully thoughtful, fruitful discussion. And Ben's one of the best journalists, documentary filmmakers who's out there working today. So just I'd like to give Ben a round of applause and call it a day.
This is life in Afghanistan. See.